Brought to you by Penguin.
Duty. Memoirs of a Secretary at War by Robert M. Gates. Read for you by George Newbern. With an author's note, read by Robert M. Gates.
This is Robert M. Gates. This is a book about my more than 4.5 years at war. It is, of course, principally about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, where initial victories in both countries were squandered by mistakes, short-sightedness, and conflict in the field as well as in Washington, leading to long, brutal campaigns to avert strategic defeat. It is about the war against al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, those responsible for our national tragedy on September 11, 2001. But this book is also about my political war with Congress every day I was in office, and the dramatic contrast between my public respect, bipartisanship, and calm, and my private frustration, disgust, and anger. There were also political wars with the White House, often with the White House staff, occasionally with the presidents themselves, more with President Obama than with President Bush. And finally, there was my bureaucratic war with the Department of Defense and the military services, aimed at transforming a department organized to plan for war into one that could wage war, changing the military forces we had into the military forces we needed to succeed. George W. Bush and Barack Obama were, respectively, the 7th and 8th presidents I worked for. I knew neither man when I began working for them, and they did not know me. To my astonishment and consternation, I became the only Secretary of Defense in history to be asked to remain in the position by a newly elected president, let alone one of a different party. I came to the job in mid-December 2006 with the sole purpose of doing what I could to salvage the mission in Iraq from disaster. I had no idea how to do it, nor any idea of the sweeping changes I would need to make at the Pentagon to get it done. And I had no idea how dramatically and how far my mission over time would expand beyond Iraq. As I look back, there is a parallel theme to my 4.5 years at war: love. By that I mean the love, there is no other word for it, I came to feel for the troops, and the overwhelming sense of personal responsibility I developed for them. So much so that it would shape some of my most significant decisions and positions. Toward the end of my time in office, I could barely speak to them or about them without being overcome with emotion. Early in my 5th year, I came to believe my determination to protect them, in the wars we were in and from new wars, was clouding my judgment and diminishing my usefulness to the President, and thus it played a part in my decision to retire. I make no pretense that this book is a complete, much less definitive history of the period from 2006 to 2011. It is simply my personal story about being Secretary of Defense during those turbulent, difficult years.
Chapter 1. Summoned to Duty. I had become president of Texas A&M University in August 2002. And by October 2006, I was well into my 5th year. I was very happy there, and many, but not all, Aggies believed I was making significant improvements in nearly all aspects of the university, except football. I had originally committed to staying 5 years, but agreed to extend that to 7 years, summer 2009. Then my wife, Becky, and I would finally return to our home in the Pacific Northwest. The week of October 15th, 2006, the week that would change my life, started out routinely with several meetings. Then I took to the road, ending up in Des Moines, Iowa, where I was to give a speech on Friday, the 20th. Just past 1 p.m. that day, I received an email from my secretary, Sandy Crawford, saying that President Bush's National Security Advisor, Steve Hadley, wanted to speak to me on the phone within an hour or two. Hadley's assistant was quite insistent that the message be passed to me. I told Sandy to inform the assistant I would return Steve's call on Saturday morning. I had no idea why Steve was calling, but I had spent nearly 9 years.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?